Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Dev Marketer channel. You're watching the Laravel 5.5 new features, all the new features that came to the newest version of Laravel. We're watching video number 11 out of 14. In this video, we're going to be talking about the custom blade directives. That's a mouthful. Let's talk about what that is real quick. I'll give you guys an example, and I've gone ahead and created something so we can kind of play around with this. And again, like everything else, it's pretty easy. You'd be surprised how easy some of these are to set up, and it gives you a lot of cool functionality. Now, really quick, let's go to some of our, let's go to our welcome page. This is the one that comes with Laravel now, and the new Laravel 5.5 welcome page has one minor difference that a lot of people may not have noticed, but it actually is starting to use the custom blade directives. And you can actually see that here in the authentication. So up here at the top, we've got our basic conditionals. You're used to this with Blade. You can do if, and then in parentheses, you pass in some sort of function you want to run. If it's true, then you'll enter this if statement and render all of this. Now inside of here, there's actually, we see an example of a custom blade directive. This @auth is testing to see if a user's logged in. And if it is, then it obviously shows this. Otherwise, it would show this. And then we have end auth to show the end of it. So this is basically a shortcut for if, auth check, like we used to have. It's basically a shortcut for that just to make it easier to read. And so this is an example of a custom blade directive. And you can actually make your own versions of these for whatever custom purposes you need inside of your application. You can kind of customize it around your app and make it super easy to read inside of your HTML files. So this is really cool. Now you're gonna have out of the box, you don't need to create these. You'll have two that are made already. You have the auth like this, else, so this is if you're not logged in, and then end auth. That's your first one. The second one you have access to is guest, which of course you can do an else if you want, you don't need to. And then you can do end guest, which will end that up. So you have access to both of those out of the box. Remember, guest is just the opposite of auth. So they're both very, very similar. But we can create our own versions of these. And those are the custom blade directives. Let's go ahead and let's create a custom one. And I want to show you guys real quick what I did to get this video ready and then how we're going to create a custom one. So inside of our post video, our post folder, I've got a show page. And you can see this is a basic page, pulling in Bootstrap, doing that kind of stuff. We simply show the title and then we show the blog post content, and that's it. Now what I want to do is I actually want to create an if statement here, and we want to say if post featured. So if it's a featured post, then we want to show some sort of special page. Okay, so like in this example, what we'll do is we'll create this badge and we'll just say featured, okay? So if the user gets, if it's a featured post, we'll have this little badge next to it that says featured. So we're checking here to see if it's a featured post. And then this just goes, and featured is just a method inside of our posts, inside of our model. Okay, so that's what we're doing. That's basically what we're trying to create. And if we go look at that in the browser, you can see here, this one is featured. If we go to post number 8, it's not featured. So just a basic conditional that we've got set up here. We're just testing against this one element. So what I want to do is create a custom blade directive, just like our auth, but I want to create one for featured posts. So we don't have to have this longer thing. Now this is, if you'd want to do this generally if you're doing this, conditional a lot. If you're just doing it once, it may not be worth it. But we're basically want to create a conditional where we can swap out this if, and we can say something like featured, and then we'll do end featured. Like that. And that's eventually what we want to create. Okay, so let me show you guys how we can make this happen. So what we're going to do is to create your own custom blade directive, you got to go to your service provider. So we'll go into our providers, app service provider, and you're going to set those inside of this boot method. Okay, just like we used to do with the old validation methods, this is where we'll establish our blade directives. Now, before we do it, we need to pull in the blade facade. So let's go ahead and say use blade. And then once we have that, we should have access to everything we need to get started. So inside of our blade, what we're going to do is we're just going to do blade if, and this is where we establish our custom blade directive. We're going to give it a name. In our case, we want it to be called featured because we want it to start with @featured, and then basically if we want to follow this format here, we need to put this portion of it without the @ into this parameter here to name it. So that's what we're going to do. And then the second thing you're going to do is pass in a function, And this function is going to be basically what you used to have inside the if statement. This is what's actually going to run. And it needs to either return true or false. Now in our case, what we want to do is we want to grab the current post and then check to see if it's featured. So what we're going to do is we actually need to bring in the post, and then we're going to say post featured, and that'll either return true or false. So that'll, this will either return true or false, which means that this whole statement will return true or false. And that's all it's going to take. Let's see, I've got an error here. We need a semicolon there. Okay, so that's it. That's all it takes to create your custom blade directive. Now we have access to featured in here. Now we do need to actually pass in the post variable here, just because that is required in here. So if you want to bring in any variables, you can have those. You just pass them in like that. But that's it. That's all it's going to take. So now it should work just like the previous one, but now we've got this cool custom syntax, which is going to be cool. So now if we go refresh this, of course it doesn't work because this one didn't work before. This one's not a featured blog post, but if I go to the post 9, I do get it just like before. So it is working and you get access to that. And of course, all of these, you can always use the, you always have access to an else. So if you want to use that, you can use that. This would be for posts that are not featured. You don't have to use those though. So that's it. That's how you do custom blade directives. That's all it takes to get started. Hopefully you guys can put those to good use. I'll see you guys in the next video, video number 12, where we're going to talk about on-demand notifications. A little change to notifiables that is much appreciated. Okay, I'll see you guys over there.